What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of V2 Sports. And this episode, it's basing off of what we did in the preseason this past year. As you all know, we did prediction episodes where we went through each team's season. We were like, yeah, they're going to win this game by this amount, blah, blah, blah. And then we do on the field throughout the season. Well, we're at the end of college football, and it's time to do the recap. And I thought, what team would be the best to, start the series with? And it's none other than the team that just broke every one of their fans' hearts. Let's go ahead and start with the University of Florida. So, Jackson, take us away with week one.
Utah, number 7 Utah. You have them at home. You have the toughest crowd imaginable. It's one of the most popular games, probably one of the loudest moments I've ever seen. I've ever heard on TV for the Swamp. Swamp was one of the loudest moments I heard. It was probably one of the loudest games ever in Florida history, which isn't a lie. It was their Super Bowl. I was surprised. I had Utah by 10 going into the preseason, and Utah came in this game. They should have won, but they lost. They lost barely. They lost off of a pick, and Florida won fairly. They had a lot of hype and play. They had a lot of hype after that game and underachieved, but they've played great this game. And Anthony Richardson looked like what the analysts expect him to be in this game alone.
So, this game, Florida played Utah at their lowest. They played Utah at their weakest. This wasn't the most insane game on the planet. Even Anthony Richardson, dude, although he rushed for 3 touchdowns, he didn't throw for any. He just played an all right game, in my opinion. So that was also his one game of infamy because he had that one play where he pump faked, got 2 people in the air, ran around, threw it wide open for the conversion for 2 points. So that was cool. Aside from that, you played a team at their weakest, and although it was a great win, a great crowd, Utah could have won, and even though they didn't, it was still a good win. But bottom line is, you didn't hold up to expectations as soon as you got hot from the start. So,
Yeah,
Well,
and it.
my whole thing with this game, many of y'all know I've mentioned it on past episodes. I mentioned it last season a bunch. I kept telling everybody, watch out for Anthony Richardson. He's sneaky good. And he comes out and he does that, and I'm like, yeah, look, I told you. I am what you think I am. I am him. And he does that. And then, you all know how the rest of the season went. But
yeah,
just
it was
talking on
one
this
game.
game, everybody's made it plain and simple, and it's the truth. Utah was at its lowest. Who would have thought that Florida, who just beat Utah while they were unranked and Utah was top 10, Florida would find themselves in the top 10 that next week and be unranked by the end of the season, while Utah, after suffering a loss week 1, would go on to play in their conference championship, while Florida goes on and loses their bowl game. This the Florida team turned out to be mid, and I guess this game for some reason just I actually said it a bunch last year, and I'm gonna prove it. I'm gonna say it again. Anthony Richardson would only perform when the pressure was on. He would not perform in any other game. He was like the good quality of a player with just like the crunch time performance. The pressure's on, the lights are high.
He had a Bryce Young performance.
Yeah.
In my opinion, most of the games I saw where the pressure was on, he failed.
Think about it. The big time
He
games.
was talking about this game alone.
Oh, this
Like
game, then
this
yeah,
one, and then
sure.
Tennessee, he's balling out. And the Georgia game, that third quarter, he started lighting stuff up. The only thing is, he had no weapons.
Yeah, well, he didn't have weapons all season.
Look, I rip on Anthony Richardson a lot, but the only thing I can say is he's still good. I think there are a lot of problems with him, and I think if he stayed at Florida for one more year, things would have really improved. Like, I would go as far to say he's a guy to look out for in the draft next year, but his main flaw was leaving. He should have never left Florida. That was a very just ignorant decision by him. If he stayed, he would have been able to develop some more, maybe even get Florida to above 6 wins. He would have made them a decent team. Or decent. But point is, he didn't. And going to the draft will be the end of him. He will be a backup for a few years, and he'll eventually be moved to the practice squad, and ultimately, he's not going to do anything. I know he's a project, and a lot of people say like draft first, second round, he could do something in the NFL. I don't think he will. He's not going to be
Yeah,
that guy.
yeah, but he has a lot of athleticism that'll last. Like
He does.
like if you want a goal line guy, like you want to like if you want a guy like not like a fullback, but like just put him in at quarterback, like on goal line, like 2 yard at the 2 yard line, and then just have like a fullback behind him run like a I forgot what it's called, but
Fullback
have the
dive.
A
running back
quarterback
behind.
sneak. A
Yeah,
My
just
opinion
quarterback
run,
is
draw.
just
the
run a
Ezekiel Elliott of
just run
quarterbacks.
a quarterback sneak. Yeah, every single play, every single time in the red zone, run a quarterback sneak. He could do it.
All right. We've covered this game more than enough. Let's go and talk about where Florida's downfall
Already
started.
happened
Yeah.
in week 2.
Yeah, it's week 2. To the second most mid team in the SEC that was supposed to do good, and Mayo Man's team. Let's talk about Florida losing to Kentucky 26-16. In
So,
the swamp.
Can I go in a rant first, please?
Yeah, go
well, I didn't get to
All
talk.
Oh, sorry, Will. Sorry, Will. You go.
So, I know this is backtracking a little bit, but I had Florida as the number 9 ranked team coming into the season. But after that Utah game where I saw they didn't have any wide receivers, which I kind of predicted, but kind of, shrugged off, I was like, this next week, the Kentucky game's not going to go good. And sure enough, they only scored 16 points against Kentucky.
Wait a sec. You had them as the number 9 team in preseason?
Yeah, I did.
Dude, guys like me and Jason had them at like 4 and 8. Like, what looked like 9? What looked like number 9, man? Because they had
the
nothing.
The offensive line in the running game.
But you look at who's the head coach, and he hasn't really had success past like a group of 5.
Billy Napier was one of the best wide receiver coaches ever, and so I kind of thought he'd be able to turn Florida's wide receiver core around. But after that Utah game, I knew that wasn't going to happen. So that was a rough realization for me. Even though they beat Utah, I had them beating Utah by like 14.
I have no idea how you saw last season and said number 9 Florida team.
It's not.
He fell
You
under
can't
the same spell
really
that all Florida
base
fans fell under. They thought since Sunbelt Billy did good in that shitty conference.
I know.
they come
I
to the
fell
SEC
under
and
Sunbelt
roast them.
Billy's spell.
I told y'all.
I fell under the
Go
Sunbelt
straight
Billy
to the
spell.
mata. Then I'm
Hey,
up in the shop. I hit the cha.
Tell Jason, bro. Ask Jason, bro. I literally said it from the start. He wouldn't be anything. Year one.
I had
Year one, he
LSU and
wouldn't.
Florida mixed up in the preseason.
When I'm
This
telling
game was
y'all-
one of those points. Or you got it, Jason.
When I'm telling y'all, anybody that's listened, I know Luke, you're new. Will, you weren't around for this. Me and Jackson specifically told everybody, and I think Dane agreed with us as well, that Billy Napier was not going to do anything
In the SEC.
worthwhile.
I said he was the downgrade. Dan Mullen was better.
And
I
guess
agree.
what?
Completely agree.
Me and Jackson got clowned. Everybody else,
Florida
was like,
fans-
He's gonna be a good coach.
No, they're going for.
I need to rant for a second. Like, this is not just coming from an old. This is coming from just an SEC common college football fan. I've never seen a team overhype as much as Florida does. Ever. I've never seen it. They literally could get a 3... Like, for example, they got a transfer Alabama right tackle who junior year is standing at 6'6", like 300-something pounds, and he's the backup. And they were all making it like this was the greatest transfer poll ever. Oh, we have the best portal. We're so crazy. We're gonna be great next year. I'm like, you lost 23 people to the portal. You have no quarterback.
Graham
What do you
Mertz.
expect to be good at this?
That's the only thing I have to say. Graham Mertz.
He got a
No
preferred
quarterback. You don't know what you're doing. You don't have a good team. And yet they act like this team is going to be even better than last year. It amazes me. They will hype up the most mid teams. I mean, they're going to be worse than they were this year. And again, back to the game, though. I said beforehand, like literally just beforehand, that Anthony Richardson doesn't perform well in big games. Perfect example is this game. That you get the ranking, you get the hype on you, and what do? You go 14 for 35, throw less than 150 yards, and you don't get a single touchdown while throwing 2 interceptions. Those are some Dak Prescott numbers. Those are some don't know how to play football numbers. Florida was just an overhyped team, and they went scoreless in the second half. Scoreless. Just this team. It amazes me that there's a quote that I have that I constructed, and there's a fine line between optimism and delusion, and clearly Florida fans have just fallen way to the left. Or, I mean, I'm way to the right. I apologize. Just, it's complete delusion. This is no, optimism of saying, oh, I'm just excited for my team and I expect us to be good. Consistently, they have made every single stat seem inflated and every single team's or player seem way better than they are. And this game was just a perfect example.
You
Hey,
can't sit here and clown.
I didn't get.
Hold on, Jackson. You can't sit
Okay.
here and clown them for the portal and be like, you have no quarterbacks. All right, hold on. They would have, but let's see. What is it, Jackson?
If you have to pay a 4-star $13 million to go to your school, that's a problem.
I'm not even that far down the timeline yet, baby.
Okay. But oh my,
We
I
can't
forgot
talk
about him.
minors.
Wait.
I forgot about him.
Yeah.
They would have
We're
had a
recording on
decent-
Discord.
Hey,
We're using Discord.
That was just a
properly.
minor infraction.
Guys,
We're using
It was a minor infraction.
he's still not committed. He can go to Florida. He's still not committed. Will they reoffer him?
No, we're talking about Kitna, the one.
We know how to use Discord
Marcus
properly.
Stokes had a,
And there
had
was
a minor
another
infraction.
recruit who
Maybe.
there was that other recruit in his car, but that I actually kind of feel for. I feel bad for that.
I don't because
Yeah.
as a high school recruit, I'm not one, of course. I'm too busy doing this. But as a high school recruit, you have to understand that the cameras are always on you. There is a magnifying glass staring at you in your every single move, especially when you're going to a large school such as Florida. So if you want to post on your Snapchat story or send it to your friends, I'm gonna say a racial slur. And
That's
you don't
true.
think they're gonna send it out. Like, trust me, you can't trust anybody. And I know that was a
You know what?
dramatic statement, but
I completely agree. There's a matter of fact, I won't mention names, but there's this specific individual who has some offers, quote unquote offers, who's really putting in the grind. He works he plays football at the back of the church. He has this own edited film that he made where he showed his highlights of him, catching the ball from 5 yards out. So clearly that guy is what a showing from him. And that's what I think Mr. Kid and the other guy should really look to be and use him as a bit of inspiration. As the guy has said, he has had doubters and he has proved those doubters wrong. So,
Hey, that kid in a Stokes quarterback room would have gone. Okay.
Guys,
absolutely insane.
we're supposed to be talking about the Kentucky game, and we get completely off track.
let's just
Let me
move
say
on from
something.
that game. Let's go to week 3.
Give me 1 second before we go on to week 3.
No,
This will be week 2. Week 2 and week 3 for me. And from their number 7 win against Utah, and from their rank, all this stuff, they got killed by Kentucky, and they should have lost to South Florida. South Florida dominated that game from start to finish,
true.
and they should have won that. Kentucky,
Completely agree.
hey, Kentucky went wild. Like, Kentucky killed them, and Kentucky's offensive line was terrible. Kentucky's offense was terrible. Their defense couldn't do anything against most teams, but their defense was actually okay. Their offense was absolutely abysmal. This was horrible.
best
And
part-
Florida,
Just to let you know, Jackson's a certified Kentucky hater.
No, the best part about that game was you saw that Richardson threw for 140, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks, and people were like, it will get better. Well, guess what? It didn't. He threw another 2 picks. He threw only 10 completions, and he only threw 112 yards for that game. Wow. It's unbelievable. This man said, I'm bad, but I can go even worse. Richardson, once again, fails to meet expectations versus one of the worst teams in college football. This team was so bad that they almost got Deion Sanders to coach them. They were horrible if it weren't for Colorado existing, and yet they almost lost at home. I mean, oh my gosh, Florida, you have nothing except a running game, and now you've lost your offensive line. I mean, it amazes me that they thought this would be the
they got some good they got some good offensive line guys in the portal. They've been building that
Damian
up.
George is not good.
They got
No, I'm saying they got like good depth.
that back up from
So
Alabama,
who's
so that's
they got good
wow.
depth, but that depth is going to be starting.
Yeah,
Oh yikes.
that's a good point actually.
Like Jackson was saying. In
Also,
USF
one of the starters tore their
I'll shut that
ACLs.
up.
Oh
Running
no,
game, that
I'm
was
sorry.
great.
I'm sorry.
Montreal Johnson and Travis Etienne both did really well.
Travis.
Block for him.
As Jackson got to in his little 2-minute rant, the USF game. God,
Trevor.
Florida should have lost that one, but I'll give it to them. They pulled that
Yep.
one out. It was a really solid team performance, and I'm not saying this as in like a bad thing and they played bad. USF has constantly been a problem for Florida, and it's not because they're a bad team. It's just because USF is extremely underrated. All right, everybody.
They
sleeps
won
on them.
one game.
They went 1-11.
They're underrated.
They won one
perform
game.
Well. They perform well against Florida. How about that? Every year.
That is a better
I'm
way to put that.
sleeping then.
They do play really well against Florida. That's true.
Like they're an
It's
underrated
their
team
Super
when it
Bowl.
comes to playing Florida. It literally is. It is their
It's
Super
true.
Bowl.
If it's just that game, then sure, I'll
But
give
now,
you that.
Now, since it's such a low-level game, let's go ahead and move on to the next game, the Florida and Tennessee game. I'm gonna say something.
This is where I tip my cap.
All right, I'm gonna say something that not many people know, or like if you watched the game, you saw it. This is no knock at Florida. This is no knock at Tennessee. Hendon Hooker was actually injured within the final 2 minutes of the second quarter. Like really bad, shoulder, pretty damn messed up. He had to go to the tent.
I thought his season was done.
Yeah, after that hit, 100%.
I thought his season was done.
So, and then Tennessee comes out and they ball. But here's my thing. All right, we just watched Florida, one, beat the number 7 team in the nation, lose to a mid-Kentucky, struggle against a team that always plays their best against Florida, and then go into a rowdy Neyland Stadium, one, where they were doing checker Neyland, two, where the team had so much hype around them this year, where everybody was like, oh my gosh, Hendon for Heisman, Tennessee for the national championships. Like, I'm going to tell y'all this right now. Y'all remember what the old podcast used to be? I didn't even believe that stuff. Okay? There's a fine line, and it like Luke said, it didn't happen. And Florida performed the best game of the year that I witnessed against an SEC team this game.
I completely agree. And if there was a game that you want to, like, for whoever franchise drafts Richardson, the fans want to have hope, go watch this game. Richardson threw for 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, and despite having to pick, he also rushed for 2 touchdowns. This was his game. Like, if there was a game to really, like, hype yourself up about drafting Richardson, it's this one.
Game.
Go in, like, although there was only one other quarterback that I saw truly ball out at Neyland, and it was Bryce Young. And that is supposed to be the best quarterback coming out of this draft. So, to say that Anthony Richardson performed well here is a really rare idea. You never see that happen. So, I'm very, like, impressed with this game. And I know 5-point loss, you still lost, but in my opinion, that's a Florida win. Not literally, but in the fact that that boosted their confidence a little bit, and especially Richardson going through weeks in the future.
Like,
yeah,
losing my words.
I know this is an all SEC podcast. We don't cover NFL. I'm a Raiders fan. I would not be completely opposed to taking Anthony Richardson. It wouldn't be my favorite pick, but he has so much potential, like I was saying before last year. But you've got to give the man time.
I say stay another year.
Exactly. He played 1 year under a brand new coaching staff and played better than some would expect. And I understand the record doesn't show for it, but he was actually playing really well. You know, everybody's making memes. Look at Anthony Richardson being a bum. Yeah, he's a bum, but guess what? He's out here losing games by 1 possession unless it's like a top-tier team. He loses to Georgia by 22 points. Okay.
My Knowles. He came within 7.
He lost to... Okay, hold on. My bad. He had an off week later in the season. Like, he's a good quarterback, and I'm going to be honest with you. Him and ETN and what is it, Montreal or Montrez?
Montrose Johnson, yeah.
Montreal.
They carried that offense like they should.
Yeah.
Like this episode, I don't want any
Big
Florida
one
fan
right
to come on
wasn't
here
bad.
and think that we're just straight talking shit about Florida. It's not
No.
that. You had a solid team. It's your coaching staff we think is stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all it is. If your coaching
sure.
staff handled
And not only that,
any of this better, y'all
but
could have possibly went 8-4.
the main reason I give Florida a bunch of crap is because of the fans who inflate their stock. Truly, I think that if I'm being completely unbiased here, Florida has a future. Although I don't think their coaching is great, their team will progress. They will get better players, they will get more players for the system, and they will be a better team. I'm very
They
confident in
should be.
saying
They
that.
should be.
And they should. Yeah, I'm very confident in that. The only reason why I clown on him as much as I do is not because of my fanship, not because I want to make this podcast seem funny. It's because of how many fans like to act like they have something they don't. If you like, for all Florida fans listening to this, if you just be honest with yourself and you truly evaluate this team properly, like any other non-biased person would, and looked at it from our lens, we wouldn't joke about it as much because you'd see what we'd see, which is not a bad team, but it's not a future national championship contender. Like, stop the Mertz Heisman stuff. Stop the Richardson's going to be insane in the NFL. Stop saying that Billy's going to be one of the best coaches in the SEC. Just truly be honest with what you have as
I
a
wish I
football
could.
team.
I
And
wish I could hear that.
if you do, you will really appreciate these seasons. As somebody who has watched some teams in the past that I rooted for go like 8-win seasons and every now and then have a 9-win season, I'd really appreciate it and like be super happy by it. And it feels like with the fan base, unless you guys are going to the SEC championship, it's a bust. And that's such a problem. Just give the team time and stop acting like this is going to be just an insanely good team next year. Like, give it time
Might
and
go
they will
7-5 next
they will
year.
get. Yeah, I think that they will go 7-5 next year. The year after that, they'll win like 9 games.
Next
Maybe
year.
even 10.
You think they'll win 7 next year?
Yes.
7 or 6, something
You're
like
overhyping South Carolina for next year, Jackson.
He is.
7 or 6,
He's been
something
doing
like
it all
that.
year, don't worry. No, okay, and I'm gonna say this is an extremely hot
Will,
take.
I've gotten the last 4 years right, man. Overhype or not, I predict the record.
Can you do me a favor and pull your
I got sources
microphone
on that
out
too.
from 5 inches down your throat? Thank you.
And I got Florida's right the last 2 years.
I'm gonna be dead honest.
Jackson,
with you.
you're deep throating that mic like my ex-girlfriend used to deep throat. Okay.
All right, listen. I know this is an extremely hot take. It's very hot for next year with Florida. Florida's going to get an upset. And it's not going to be against Georgia or Florida State or LSU. They're beating Tennessee next year. They're going to beat Tennessee next year.
It's in the swamp. It's going to be their Utah game.
All right, now let's go ahead and go on to the
Double.
next game.
W-
Eastern, no.
Yeah.
Okay, make this
No,
one
it's-
short. Nobody cares about this blowout. Eastern Washington and Florida. Congratulations, Florida. That was the most
beat
soundproof
up-
game you've ever played. I'm not even gonna lie.
You beat a team not many people know of. Congratulations.
Let's go
Cooper
ahead.
Cup went there.
Wow. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Mizzou and Florida. Another heartbreaking loss for the Gators. No, never mind. They won. I read that wrong, Jackson. Thank you.
Yes. Can
How
I
do
actually
you-
start this one off?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a
Yes,
little bit of positive
yes.
points from this. Thank you. So, despite the fact that Anthony Richardson threw for not even 100 yards, because he didn't really throw, he only threw 14 passes, and he did throw an interception. The thing I want to point out about this game is Florida, your defense balled out. I mean, I don't even think Georgia gave up or I don't even think Georgia held them to
The
17
only
points. Did
17.
Georgia give up more points than Florida did?
They
They gave
they
up
literally almost
22.
lost. They gave
Yeah,
up 22.
exactly. Florida gave up less points than Georgia did, the national champions.
Well,
They played
that's
outstanding.
kind of a bad.
I know the
thing,
rain,
because
whatever.
Florida
I'm still
gave
saying,
up Florida gave up like 500 yards in this game.
no, they didn't.
Yeah, let's go. I'm looking at it right now.
They
No.
gave up about 150 something yards
Rushing
rushing,
yards and passing
and then
yards.
passing yards they gave up like 220.
220 and
That's
150.
Total stats Missouri had
I think it was
370.
350.
total
370
stats
yards.
Missouri had only total stats Missouri only had 370 yards. That's nothing crazy, and they only put up 17 points, and you forced 2
Look no
turnovers.
different.
That was a very great performance from your defense. That was a game in which you saw some hope. Going forward, you could see this team shut down some solid offenses. So I say hats off to that. They played very well. Ventrell Miller, you had 10 tackles and an assist tackle. That was pretty solid. And this was just a good game from them. I mean, I think Florida played very well.
Yeah.
All right,
Florida
wait.
played pretty all right, but let me tell you something. Missouri had this. They had more yards. They look like the more producing team this game, and I don't know what happened, but they had a lot of miscommunications. They had a lot of turnovers. It was probably because it was at the Swamp.
They were fake
The Swamp is
SEC.
one of the hardest places to play, and Missouri lost a heartbreaker, another one that they've had like 3 of them, 3, 4. They've had a lot of heartbreakers this season. Gosh.
So, this game was actually very surprising to me. Like Jackson said, it was a heartbreaker for Missouri, and I'm going to be honest. I predicted at the beginning of the season that Missouri would come out and win this game. And
Same.
this is one of those games where Florida showed, like, they can beat the shitty of the shit in the SEC. Not by much, but they can do it. They did it once again later in the season with a team that had 2 top 10 upsets. They just railed them. They beat another shitty of the shit. So let's go ahead and go to the next game. Your SEC West champions, the LSU Tigers, versus the Florida Gators.
LSU dominated this game from start to finish, and Florida had momentum hype going into the late third, early fourth quarter,
Exactly.
and their defense absolutely blew it. Their defense killed it for them. Anthony Richardson had a really good game, and I think Florida's offense kept them in the game multiple times. The rushing attack. And the only thing that really struck out is that the defense kept on selling every single time, every single clutch drive. It was a 1-score game for majority of the game. Then LSU made it 2 scores. Florida made it 1 score back again, and then finally Florida's defense screws up so bad, and LSU just completely handles it for the rest of the fourth quarter.
I don't think
You would,
Go ahead.
or you got it.
No, you go. You go.
All right, cool. You would think with 4 touchdowns rushing alone, 35 points, that this would have been a win for Florida. Because although I think LSU's offense is very good, you wouldn't expect them to score 40. And I know we've seen it happen before, but at this point in the season at least, you wouldn't have expected it. But this was a game where you couldn't contain Jaden Daniels. This was when we look at Jaden Daniels eventually going into the draft, this will be one of those games that people look at a lot film wise to show what you're getting, because Jaden Daniels had 3 rushing touchdowns, 349 yards, no picks. He just played a really good game. And what's even crazier about this is I said 3 rushing touchdowns. He also had 3 passing touchdowns. Yes, you heard me right. He had every single touchdown in the game. Jaden Daniels this might have been his best game of the season. The dude could not be contained. 6 touchdowns. I mean, just I don't understand that. And that's where I say Florida, your defense had a great game last game. Congratulations. You put everything into your basket in one game because you had nothing here. That was just an abysmal performance that nobody was really expecting. I was expecting it to be at least a lower scoring game, but Jane Daniels said otherwise.
That was LSU's breakout game.
Honestly, yeah, you can make the argument for that.
It is the argument.
Well, I mean, Personally, I feel like if I were to make the case, it would be Ole Miss or Bama because those were better opponents, and also that's what truly started like the conversation. Because like when they beat Florida, nobody was really saying LSU potential playoff team. They were just saying LSU's a good team. But when they beat like Alabama, okay, people are starting to talk like this might be a a good team. Like this might be a playoff team
Well, those are
even.
Well,
casuals.
I have no way to better explain this game than how Jackson did. Like, I get y'all are talking about LSU and we're going off something else, but y'all know we're on a time crunch right now, so I'm trying to speed it through.
Yeah, sorry.
There's no better way to describe it, so with that, we're going to just go to the next game, which is Florida and Georgia. That game, I'm going to be extremely honest. Everybody talks about the Mizzou game being close with Georgia. Everybody talks about Kent State and Kentucky. Florida showed an extreme amount of promise in that game. All right, yes, the
Yeah.
score might not
They
show
kept
it.
it closer than expected, but
Exactly.
exactly like the LSU game, their defense sold them. And next season, their defense loses all the guys that were actually good in this. So just imagine what's going to happen then. Like,
Exactly.
gosh.
And I
That's
understand
why I
this.
have them at like 4-8, 5-7 next season, which is lower than my 6-6 prediction this season.
Anybody got any other takes on this one?
Well, what made this score so close is the freshman safety Malachi Starks for Georgia came up and busted a coverage on Justin Shorter's 75-yard touchdown route on like a 3rd and 15. So that's why the score looks closer than it should have been.
Well, also Stetson Bennett threw 2 picks, and that kind of helped Florida as well.
Yeah,
Carries momentum.
that kind of helped him too.
Well, it's an old man. What do you expect?
Good point.
So, I see
When you're
nobody else
40
has any more
playing in the league.
statements about it. Let's go ahead and talk
Yeah,
about
move on.
Florida and Texas A&M. Wow.
And now Texas A&M was
I'm
missing
gonna.
half of their
Yeah.
team. Texas A&M was missing half of their team, and this should have never been close in the first place.
If you listened to the podcast earlier on, I literally listed off how many players were out, and we listed close to 20-something players in the starting lineup. Like Texas
And
A&M
A&M was
literally
like
had
winning
nobody.
for the
No,
most of the
and I
first
can tell you
half.
why. This was, in my opinion, one of Florida's most embarrassing games all season, even though they
Yep.
won. And do you know why? Because Texas A&M, if their running back doesn't get stopped for carries in the second half because Jimbo Fisher decided I'm not going to run the ball anymore, A&M might win. Because in the first half, A&M was basically dominating Florida for the whole half. And then Jimbo in the second half decided, all right, our running game's really working. We're really destroying Florida. Let's stop running the ball. And I don't know why. I don't remember why, at least. I'm not sure if it was injury, but point is, if A&M continue to run the ball, that may not be the score we're looking at. We may be looking at a 42-41 A&M win. So, or well, actually they had a field goal, so I'm not sure. It would have been 45-41, but still, you get the point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that all y'all want to say for that? So if so, I'm gonna go ahead and let Jackson start this next one because I know this one hits really close to home for him.
Yeah, that was so funny. That was nice. That was a nice little pun. But
21-0 in the first quarter.
yeah, I have no words for this. This is like the Tennessee game last year. Remember when South Carolina played at Tennessee? There was hype going into that game, but it was like a weird game, and then South Carolina just completely like shit the bed, like completely like laid an egg, and then you see what happens later for them in the season, and you're like, man, what happened here? Which I'm pretty. There had to be something different with the offensive coordinator after this game, but like Florida, man, this was your like best performance of the year. Your defense from the like last few games has been playing horrible, except for the second half versus Texas A&M's backups. But your
First
defense played
quarter,
lights out this game, this entire game.
first
Didn't allow
quarter
a
was
single offensive point.
the first quarter is probably the best bit of football they ever played, like the
Yeah,
whole season.
the whole season.
All right. So with that being said, I've got to bring back an old character specifically for this game. Let's go ahead and talk about our Uncle Bo. Okay. Uncle Bo is the man who y'all heard speaking the last time we talked about South Carolina. All right.
Go Gamecocks.
Go Gamecocks. All right. Uncle Bo had to sit here and watch this damn Marshall. Now listen, I'm like any other fan in South Carolina. I love me some cock as much as the next guy. All right, I just love them. But what the hell? 21 points in the first quarter.
That was probably South Carolina's worst game of the season and Florida's best game of the season.
My only thing I gotta say is thank you, Florida. You allowed us to go and cock block 2 teams from the playoffs. 2. Right? We beat Tennessee. We beat
Uncle
Clemson.
Bo.
Yeah.
How was the dance for Ray Ann?
She done got knocked up.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Uncle Bo. How did that happen?
I'm sorry. I don't think that's PG. I don't.
Ask Jalen Kitna.
Holy shit.
All right,
So it's not PG, and Uncle Bo dropping the cuss words.
guys, let's get into the game of the year.
Excuse me.
Are you guys ready?
Excuse me, you cock munch. I'm not done. All right. So yes, we lost to Florida. Okay. But we beat the next 2 teams by so much, they had to put them in a bowl, specifically for our coach, the Beamer's Bitch Bowl. Now, yeah, we lost to the Gators, and now I'm having to, take care of Ray Ann's goofy ass child. It's not mine. We're not Crimson Tide fans. We don't do that around here. But I'm having to take care of it. All I gotta say is the Florida Gators, you did damn good. Okay, we came into your house. We thought we were gonna do something, and we shit the bed like my great grandmama. But the University of Florida has a promise. They have promise. They have potential.
And that completely screwed up versus Vanderbilt.
And from one cock lover to the next, I'm proud to say that we are never gonna beat Florida in Sunbelt Billy. So
I really appreciate it, Uncle Bo. Thanks for the words.
Give me 1 second. I gotta go. Hold on.
You can go out the door. Go out the door. It's fine.
Let me go get Jason.
Open your cranky ass door. What did Uncle Bo do to Jason?
Uncle
Jason
Bo had some problems with me.
Why did he scream when he opened the door?
I scared him.
All right, yeah. Let's get into the Vanderbilt game. Everybody's favorite. Dude, me and Jason predicted this. Did we not?
I did too.
Oh yeah.
The king, the hero, the father, the son, and the Holy Spirit. Mike Wright was the man in this game. 3 touchdowns, the win. Bro was ballin'.
He just did what we expected him to do.
I'm so excited for him to take Will Rogers' spot in that offense.
Same. Yeah, especially with that offensive line, he will actually
look good, like really good.
This game is exactly where the entire nation started to realize, you know what? Florida's just ass.
I had a field day that game.
We've told y'all the story about that one. But the game was amazing. Florida's defense, like they did so much this year, just kept selling. Okay, how do you and this is no knock at, Vanderbilt's savior during the time, Mike Wright, at all. But how do you let Mike Wright, or even Vanderbilt in general, just cream your ass?
Yeah,
I can tell you, it was because they stopped their rushing attack. A combined,
they were the only team of the season to combine, stop their rushing attack. They held them under 100 rushing yards.
45 rushing yards and no touchdowns from rushing. That is insane.
That was the lowest Florida had on the season. It was like one of the historic lowest in their team's history.
Yeah. They ran so bad that excuse me. I think they only ran for like 20 carries.
All right,
That
give me a second,
they had
everybody.
like no they had 32 carries and 45 yards. I'm pretty sure
Hey, y'all, give me
because I
1
remember
He's
the
second.
rushing.
game.
I thought it was 20,
Jackson,
but
do me a
maybe not.
favor. I need you to segue into the next couple of games. I hear Uncle Bo just tearing shit down in my house, so I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Oh. Okay. Let's get into the Florida State game. You know, best game of the season. Before we get into the bowl game, let's get into the Florida State game. Florida's offense, man, it was still there all season. It was a pretty good offense. It was a great rushing attack. You killed an undersized Florida State, but you know what they did? They absolutely murdered your defense. Your
Jordan
defense is
Travis.
awful. Jordan Travis
OU.
killed that defense. Killed that defense.
Jordan Travis for Heisman.
Hey,
Yes,
let me tell you
sir.
something. We have to realize that this 45 points that Florida State put up against Florida starters, all of Florida starters on that defense basically go. So it's going to be a 60 point next year.
I'll tell you this also. The main point of this game was in the first half they threw the ball bad for us, and it was because I also think that Woodson
Us.
our before we placed Woodson with Patrick
Us.
Surtain. Yeah, I'm a Florida. I've admitted I'm a
My
Florida
bad.
State fan. Ain't no SEC bias. I'm a Florida State fan. I go to school here, but
I'm used to doing
here's
that.
the beautiful thing about my team was the first half. Well, actually, it wasn't. But the first half, Florida threw not great, but the reason they still put up a ton of points because of big plays. Our quarterback or corners coach Woodson, before we got placed by Patrick Surtain, the goat, really did not prepare us for this game because every single time they just needed to go to Pearsall and he would absolutely destroy us, having 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. And in the second half, we adjusted, changed our strategy, and decided we're going to let them run absolutely insane on our line. So this was just honestly a good coaching game from Florida. When they couldn't pass, they switched the rushing attack and made it a little bit better, and I was impressed. Although I think the team's gone better for us, the bottom line is Florida performed well.
Yeah.
And I think this was probably, in my opinion, the game that made me say, you know what? Hats off. That was impressive.
Yeah. My hats off. That's impressive moment with Vanderbilt because, you know, how do you lose to Vanderbilt? Yeah, that was a joke. Sorry.
I can't believe that we gave up 38 points and Vanderbilt did that. Maybe it was just nerves. Maybe our corners coach being bad and the nerves of playing this game
Or
alone
maybe
helped.
it's just a rivalry.
True. Rivalries make things happen. And
Yeah.
for what it's worth, Richardson had a good game. He threw 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a good game.
Yeah.
I think he played very solid.
I think this really showed us how good Ricky Pearsall truly is.
Yeah.
He was underused all season. This game showed us
1,000%.
This game showed us how he should have been used and what Florida could have had. But let's get into the final game. And do we really have to go over this? Because
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Shamar James, the linebacker for Florida, looked very well in the bowl game.
Yeah, nobody
Bottom
else
line
did.
is Florida had everybody out. I can't blame them a ton. The only thing I can blame them for was they did have their line and they did have their rushing attack. They had ETN and Montrell Johnson. And
Well, Oregon State was putting
congratulations,
9 people in the box.
both of them had a combined 28 yards rushing with
Oregon
no touchdowns.
9 people in the box.
What?
It was rough, man.
Oregon State
bottom
put
line is-
9 people in the box.
They knew they couldn't pass, therefore they rushed. They put everybody in the box so they couldn't rush. So it somewhat makes sense. But at the same time, 3 points. I mean, I know everybody was out, but come on. But
I mean-
again,
You also
good
have to
team,
look at it-
people out.
You also have to look at it as this way. What just happened right before the bowl game? Kitna got arrested.
They lost to
And that's going to really throw around team chemistry really bad, especially like we record our episodes in Discord. We properly use Discord. If anybody was like friends with him that was on that team and they were friends with him on Discord, all of them got a knock. Only because of what Kidna did. It had to make team chemistry just go straight down. You have to sit here, you have to be like, yeah, I just bonded with this dude for an entire season and he's just a creep. He's a child fondler. Like,
Speaking of creeps, did you handle Bo, Jason?
um, Bo stole my credit card talking about buying some Shane Beamer cardboard cutout, so it's fine.
King
Oh
Bo.
Lord.
He'll probably buy a Jalen Kitna cutout too.
They don't sell
Yeah,
those
he
in
seems
the
like
United
the
States.
type of guy.
That's
No,
Dang.
if he won't buy a cutout, he'll buy a Kitna Discord access link.
invite only. Alright, y'all heard us sit here, we've had plenty of fun recording this episode, and we've recorded all the episodes you've heard this week in the same night, so forgive us if some of these episodes sounded a little This is the only time we can get with each other to talk about sports, and after seeing the numbers, the demand has shot up, and I mean it is shot up for a third episode, so we had to get it out to y'all. I'm gonna go and format all of these episodes tonight, and
Wait. Jason,
mm-hmm.
we forgot the happy birthday.
Oh my goodness, we did.
That's a good point. That is a good point.
All right, who's gonna start us off?
Guys,
Uh,
I got this.
Jackson, you started off. We'll lead in.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
Happy
Happy
birthday to
birthday
Alexis.
to you.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
dear
dear
Alexis.
Alexis.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
And many
One of the
more.
fans, we
And have
salute you.
many more. I guess.
What was
Coke.
with the static?
It wasn't static, it was more of like a candle. Alright,
It's definitely static.
Yeah.
if y'all just heard that happy birthday, y'all are gonna think we're weird. No, that's just like our official hype girl for the podcast.
Yeah, she's great.
It's great, gets a lot of publicity out there for us, so can't thank her more.
Jackson has a crush on her.
That is
Ha
true.
ha ha.
You see how he's laughing? I know you're listening to this, Alexis.
He doesn't have his camera on because he's blushing. We know that.
That's exactly what it is. Now, everybody, for the usual sign off, I'll go ahead and talk about W and V2 Sports. If you don't purchase W after this episode, Luke, I'm gonna drive down to Tallahassee. I'm gonna kick in your door. I'm gonna confront them, and then I'm gonna force you to buy W. All right? Understood? All right.
Yes.
Use code
Yeah.
V2 Sports at W and SeatGeek for 10% or $20 off your order on SeatGeek. And make sure, because I cannot stress this enough, because it still seems to be a problem, make a new account. Everybody say it with me now. Luke, what did I just tell him?
Make a
A
new
new account.
account.
All right. You've heard it.
New account make.
Oh, God.
Somebody play the crickets.
No.
Like,
All right.
no.
So y'all have heard the sponsors. Jackson kind of messed up last episode and told y'all to check out Pro U Sports. Don't do that. The ESPN app works the same. Google works the same. Or even this, ESPN Fantasy works the same.
And let's be honest, we all know the alumni. Nobody wants to search up your third uncle removed and how he played 7 snaps for the Oregon State Beavers. We don't really care that he was the third string linebacker who decided to come in for his senior game for the bowl game. Congratulations. If you want to figure that out, go on Google, Wikipedia, ESPN, Instagram. I don't care. Just don't use that. It's garbage, waste of space.
All right, boys,
Ugh.
and as always, good morning, good afternoon, and good night from a very sleep-deprived V2 crew.